Hello students, this is Mr. Panza with today's math focus question. How do we convert units of measurement? Following up our previous question, determining the best units of measurement, I want to make sure that you understand that when we are converting measurements, we will only convert metric to metric and customary to customary. We will never interchange the two. Here's something that you'll have to know and memorize. Small to big, it's a division gig, and big to small, multiply them all. Right now that doesn't mean much to you, but when applied to these following three steps, you'll know what I mean when I say small to big, it's a division gig, and big to small, multiply them all. Here's the example question. If I were given 36 inches and asked to convert it into feet, we need to follow these steps in order to determine that there are 3 feet in 36 inches. To get to this final answer down here, these 3 steps are all you'll need to know and follow. And if you follow them correctly, you'll always get the right answer. So knowing the basic fact shouldn't scare you, because we are going to give you cheat sheets. In other words, a sheet that gives you the basic facts for everything that you will have to convert. In other words, whenever you see the fact that you're going from inches to feet, if you take out your cheat sheet, it will show you that 12 inches equals 1 foot, and you immediately write that down. Write that basic fact underneath the question. So step 2 takes your information about the basic fact and takes your information about the question and lines them up. Inches to inches, feet to feet. That's what this little piece of information is telling you. You keep the units on the same exact side. In other words, if inches is on the left, make sure your inches for the basic fact, 12, is also on the left. Because feet is on the right in this example, then my 1 foot has to also be on the right. Now, whether you see it or not, we've actually set ourselves up for a division problem. And that's step 3, divide or multiply to finish. This is where the little bit of the rhyme comes into play. If it were small to big, it's a division gig. In other words, if I'm going from a small unit to a larger unit, then I would divide. And in this case, that's exactly what I'm doing. The inch is the smallest unit of length measurement in the U.S. customary system. And the foot is the second smallest, but it is getting bigger. And if it's small to big when I come to units, it's a division gig. In this case, I'm taking 36 inches, which is directly from the question, and dividing it by 12, which is my basic fact. And when I divide 36 by 12, I get my final answer of 3. The nice thing is, when you get to step 3, you don't necessarily have to remember small to big, it's a division gig. You just need to see the fact that 36 inches is above, kind of like a numerator in a fraction, or an improper fraction in this case, above the number 12, my denominator. Well, we've been discussing fractions, as well as the fact that fractions are actually just division questions in disguise. Because I have 36 as a numerator and 12 as a denominator, I can just do 36 divided by 12 and get my answer of 3. And because I've set my problem up correctly, keeping your units on the same side, inches above inches, feet above feet, and understanding that I never use 1 to multiply or divide, I'm going to take this 36 and divide it by 12 because I can see, hey, there's my fraction bar, and of course I'm going to divide. If for whatever reason that bigger number, the 12 inches, were over here, then you would see a different type of example, and I'll show you those if you continue to take a look. Let's take a look at one more example here on this exact video for converting units of measurement. If Mrs. Smith is 5 feet tall, how many inches tall is she? So we already know that if I'm going from feet to inches, my unit is actually getting smaller. So let's go back to my green sheet. If I start with big and I go to small, I must multiply them all. If you know that right off the top of your head, then all you have to do is take 5 and multiply it by something. Here is where knowing your basic fact comes into play. Step 1. You must know your basic fact. My question is 5 feet equals a certain amount of inches. And my basic fact is 1 foot equals 12 inches. So in order to set this problem up correctly, I take the question and line it up, and then follow step 2. Write the basic fact directly underneath the question so you can see it lined up here. my feet are underneath feet, and my inches are underneath inches. So if I were to take my basic fact and place it directly under the main question, I've got to make sure I keep the same units on the same side. That's going to help me in a couple of different ways. First of all, I now know that the exact or the basic fact is 1 foot equals 12 inches. So if you already remembered, hey, because I'm going from a big to a small unit, I must multiply them all. You can just immediately do 5 times 12. But if you can't remember that little hint, then just follow it up with the third and final step. Divide or multiply to finish the conversion. In this case, because 5 is above 1, and back on my green sheet it said we never use 1 to multiply or divide, I'm actually going to cross my 5 to the large number in the basic fact, which is 12. And wait a minute, what does that look like? That X reminds me of a multiplication symbol. So because I'm connecting my 5 to my 12 and my foot to my inches, it's my multiplication. So as you can see, the main difference here is I'm going to multiply. 12 times 5 will get me my final answer of 60 inches. So Mrs. Smith, who's 5 feet tall, can be also listed as 60 inches. Now I want you to see the difference between this example and the previous example. How did I know to divide? Because inches on top of inches gave me the basic fact 12 as a denominator and the question 36 inches as a numerator. They were on top of each other and I was looking for the biggest numbers, which then told me, hey, because it's a fraction, I divide. However, in the example with Mrs. Smith, my main or basic fact 12 inches was all the way over here on the right because inches underneath inches, and feet underneath feet all the way to the left. The only way I can connect the question number 5 to the basic unit 12 is by crossing over these facts. And when I cross over, it looks like a multiplication symbol, which reminds me to multiply. Now, those are just a couple of ways that you can remember converting units of measurement. Small to big, it's a division gig. Big to small, multiply them all. If you can't remember that, just put it in a fraction. If it's a fraction, you divide, or cross it up, and if you cross them up, you multiply. Follow these 3 steps, and you will be able to convert units of measurement, whether you're converting metric to metric or customary to customary. I hope this help answers the question, how do we convert units of measurement? Thanks, and we'll talk to you soon.